Hi, and welcome to the Skeptical Leftist podcast, the show where I talk to a variety of people to spread critical thinking, progressive politics, and philosophy. And today I'm joined by the Wolf Spirit.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
A whole Wolf Spirit, yeah. I thought really hard about this joke, so I want to get it out of the way. I'm in the Netherlands, and I couldn't get my webcam straight, so so I'm going to say it's at a Dutch angle. Yeah?
Okay. Nicely done.
That's my joke of the day.
Right on. I
But
guess.
At least you can see my really rad pride flag in the
For
background.
sure. Yeah, that's awesome. I guess a good place to start is always who are you? What do you want people to know about you?
Well, I've had if you're a bit older, like me, then you probably went through like a million online aliases, you know. But just the Wolf Spirit is like my current handle, and that's also where everyone can find me on social media. I think the most noteworthy stuff in terms of like activism is probably the stuff I've done with CritFacts, and CritFacts is like an online, like a YouTube channel, mostly geared towards like promoting LGBT stuff. And debunking a lot of anti-LGBT stuff. So, especially in the beginning, we used to do a lot of like debunking. Just like if we found like really stupid turf shit, we would just, we would get together in like a Google Doc or whatever, and just sit down and just create like this finely crafted like response that like was like. Like a big middle finger, basically.
Okay, yeah.
But aside from that, I also do music. I played in like I want to say like 5 bands by now, since like 2005. Yeah, mostly in the metal genres, mostly like black metal, death metal, and those are spaces that unfortunately also have a lot of like. Yeah, exactly. That is an unfortunate reality. So, what else? I also make video games with my awesome boyfriend.
Cool.
Yeah, we have like a game on Steam. I don't know if shall I plug it? Shall I get the plug out of the way now? Or?
Whatever. Well, we can say it now, and we can say it at the end as well.
Just say it. It's Disinfection. It's like are you familiar with the games? No?
I am not a gamer, no.
Okay. For the gamers in the crowd, it's very similar to a game called Phasmophobia, which is like a game where you it's like a deduction game with ghosts that are trying to kill you. And our game is kind of like that, except you're deducing a space infection and like on like a spaceship, and you're trying to kill it.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right on.
Boyfriend says we also have a game on Steam called Keep It Running, which is my boyfriend's weird excuse to obsess over industrial age steam machines, basically.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Right on. I do not do the games, so I don't know much about that stuff. But
just follow it. This is not your cup of tea, or
no. Well, I used to, but I could never control my temper. So when I lose, I'd break things, and then I was like, you know what? Enough is enough. It's not worth it.
I've always been like really poor, so like I used to live at like a shared housing space, and like one of the people there who would like show up in the evenings during like communal hours, or whatever you call them, like shared communal hours, and she was like she was always really nice, like a really nice person, but like we would sometimes pull out the board game, and we would start board games, and we would be like, hey, you wanna join us? and she would be like, I kind of want to, but I'm going to say no because then the board is going to end up on the ground, probably. Okay. Because she apparently has also like some, weird temper issues.
Board games I'm usually okay with because you're playing with other people, but video games always got me. Like I just, I could never control it. So I quit.
You got to go with the more healthy option, you know?
Yeah, that's right. I'm much better off not spending that time just frustrated and mad all the time.
Oh, yeah, so, definitely. Yeah, I can see that.
So I guess politically you identify as an anarcho-communist.
Yes,
so
definitely.
We share that in common.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, usually the red-black flag is always kind of a little bit of a giveaway, but like, I've seen individualists like with those colors as well. It kind of depends. Like sometimes some anarchists I've talked to, they'll be like really chill, and then you're saying like, well, I'm an anarcho-communist, and I'm like, no. And they kind of roll their eyes, and it's like, oh no, more into individualist stuff, which I can't really do. I think there's like a good lesson to be learned from individualism, like from Stirner, for example. You know, like I always feel that a lot of people, a lot of the more chud types, at least the chuddy types, they always kind of take the wrong lessons from Stirner.
Right.
You know, they always because like especially when you deal with like the ANCAP types, you know, oh my God forbid you run into the ANCAP types, then it'll be like, well, have you read Stirner before? Because Stirner, like, okay, but Stirner also advocated for like a union of egoists, you know, like how is that like how is that like that much different than like a proper communism, you know? And at least if you're approaching it from the angle of like a right-wing libertarian, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not by any stretch an expert on Stirner, but I did I did read like the wiki page on a video once, and one of the comments, because I was like, well, I don't know if I agree with this idea. Like it seems like anti-socialist, which to me is the best way for everybody to have the most liberty. And one of the commenters was saying, well, I think you misunderstood because it's the idea of holding it as sacrosanct above and beyond the individual, where the point is supposed to be the individual thrives through these systems.
Yeah. And I honestly, if you read like the most prominent anarcho-communist like philosophers, they also, in my opinion, they also like they're not like anti-individualist in that sense, you know.
Yeah.
Like they always say like, well, you know, like in a communist society, everything has to be like shared, which I don't think that's necessarily the point. It's more so like, and I always try to explain people this, you know, like, and then you kind of have to, and you've probably done this yourself. You kind of have to walk them through like the hoop, so to say. And you say like, well, okay, well, I'm a guitar player, I'm a musician, you know, so I have a couple of really cool guitars, you know, and well, say for the sake of argument, I keel over and die. Like right now, I'll just keel over and die. You know, God forbid. But you know, let's say, what happens to those instruments then? You know, well, okay, I have no like meaningful like blood relatives anymore. At least blood relatives that care. And even if I did, if they were to inherit my guitars, they would just sell it. You know, they would just put it in like thrift store or whatever. Like, okay, what if instead, you know, instead of just giving it to someone who has like no need for it, you know, instead of that, you give it to to someone in your neighborhood, who is like an aspiring musician, who has the biggest need for it,
Yeah. Yeah.
isn't that like a way better way of like, is that a way better way of doing things? And like, I feel like if you walk someone, even like a liberal or something, like even if you walk someone through the hoops like that, I feel like even they would like often agree, even
Yeah.
they have like a little light bulb going up upstairs and going like, yeah, that does seem like a better way to do things. Like, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It makes me think of the library socialism that you hear about from like the Seriously Wrong podcast, where like they're like, well, if you aren't using it, then it should be in a place where people can access it who will use it, depending on what, like, why am I sitting on this item that's been on my shelf for 12 years?
Exactly. That's always the thing they get hung up on, because they're always like, well, what if I want that thing? Well, if it, because they always think that there's going to be like in like a communist society, like, and of course I'm talking like lowercase c communist society.
Yeah.
It's gonna like everyone is going to be fighting for resources, but like as long as you have like a need for something, that just the thing is just meaningfully yours. This is, I feel like that's just like even if you go to like anarchist communes nowadays, the ones that exist, they'll often be arranged kind of like that,
Yeah. What's the word? Like usufruct, I think. Yeah, usufruct, where like whoever uses the item technically owns it until they stop using it.
Is that a German word or something?
I'm not sure where it came from. I think it. I think the first time I heard it was in reference to Murray Bookchin.
Oh wow! Yeah, I was going to say I love Murray Bookchin, but then the stuff he wrote later on is a little bit different and a little bit more liberal, and yeah. But like his early stuff was really fascinating, and it's kind of wild to me how like he basically predicted like the climate crisis. If you read like Postcards to the Anarchism now, he wrote that in like, when was that? Like in the 70s.
Yeah, I think so.
I was listening to that, and I prefer audiobooks if I can help it. And I was like, holy shit, this is how is this different from like Extinction Rebellion sort of action? Like it's like he predicted that. It's weird. But
yeah, for sure. I guess because I find myself, I have like a kind of an affinity, obviously, with individualism. That's why I'm an anarchist, not like a Leninist, right?
Yeah, that is a good point to raise. That's always that's such a annoying thing that people always bring up when it comes to this might be a good bridge for platformism.
Oh yeah.
because you named Rob Lennon, like I still see it, and sometimes when I browse like Reddit or something because I'm bored and I hate myself, I guess. and I come across like a post on like one of the subs there, and it's like one of the anarchist themed subs, and people are always like, and someone brings up like platformism. They're always like, oh, yeah, but that's basically Leninism, because basically like the vanguard. It's like
absolutely not.
Same at all. And even then, I would say like Lenin's conception of the vanguard was like wildly different from like the general conception of like a vanguard.
Yeah.
It's like those two things are not even the same, but for some reason they always get mixed up. Like even back in the day when you read critique of like the platform, and some of it was like really valid, I should say. It wasn't all garbage critique.
Sure.
But some of the critique that people had on the platform was actually that sort of thing, like, oh, it's the Bolshevikification of anarchism, that's what they called it back then. And I feel like that misunderstanding that was even present back then. But they also had some valid critique, obviously, because like the the platform was like basically like a small pamphlet at that time,
Oh yeah.
It wasn't really like a full-fledged like ideology, I feel. And but that's where Especificismo
Mm-hmm.
comes into place. Actually, I have a little booklet here.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
it's mirrored for me, but I don't know if you can see it. But
Yeah, it looks normal to me. So
yeah, well, it isn't. This one is in Dutch, but yeah, it's like it's basically the entire introduction to Specificismo, and I've got a Dutch version, but you can just read it for free on like the Anarchist library, I think. And honestly, that really kind of opened my eyes towards like the organizational potential of like anarchist movements. I feel like there's a lot to that, and it kind of fills the gaps a lot very very neatly for like regular platformism to the
yeah,
point where like anarchist federations today, like platformist federations, what they actually mean is especificismo,
right, right.
So
I find like, yeah, I just often wonder like if we're not doing some sort of organizing, at least as long as we're not doing it like a dictatorial way, like we organize ourselves horizontally as much as we can, and we be real democracy, not representative nonsense. Like if we're not doing some level of that at least, like then what are we actually doing? Are we
and
just a bunch of individuals like out in the ether being like, I rebel against society?
yeah, well, then you come into what Bookchin would call, the lifestyle stuff.
Yeah.
It's a scary word. Like I've made enemies by just saying lifestyle. Uh, it's a really dangerous word to use around um, some particular anarchists. But I mean, I don't think lifestyle needs to be a dirty word. Like obviously, if you're referring to like say like LGBT stuff, that's obviously not a lifestyle. But
Right.
like if you're saying that um, uh, anarchism shouldn't be any sort of organizational method, shouldn't contain anything, any sort of like ways of moving forward. We should just kind of scream into the void and sit tight and enjoy the ride. Maybe I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
It's like what? How do you describe that then? Well,
Yeah.
that's I, I wouldn't. Nowadays, I don't really use that word anymore of like lifestyle because it is kind of mean. I do understand, but
Sure.
at the same time, like a lot of like when I talk to like nihilists and stuff, yeah, a
I
lot of them.
try really hard to like, so nihilism on its own without the anarcho is garbage. Right? But with the anarcho, I still have a lot of issues like where I don't get where they're coming from. And I'm trying. I am trying. I had somebody on Blue Sky explain it very well to me. And I'm trying very hard to understand where they're coming from, but I'm still I still have trouble, like I say, grasping that hopelessness that apparently is what comes from or leads anarcho nihilists.
Yeah, I agree. That's also my trouble. Like at the same time, like I do I do understand why some people might reject like just straight up communism. Like
Yeah.
I am like completely disabled and I have autism, and so in like a productive society, I would be you know I would be fairly useless. I like obviously I could be productive in my own ways. I am productive now, for example. But like when it comes to like hard labor and such like that, like yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
With the communists I mean, these are Twitter communists, so whatever that makes. But like some of them are like very very in favor of like forced roles in society and like
oh yeah,
forced conformity and that stuff. Like obviously, I'm against all of that.
mm-hmm.
That's a bad position to hold, no matter what I think is going on.
Yeah,
Call
I
your,
agree.
yeah, call yourself a communist if you want, but if you're telling me that, like you say, like the disabled person who has trouble walking because of nerve damage has to go out and do the same thing as the guy who, is 25 years old and fully able-bodied. Well, I'm gonna disagree. Like I'm gonna fight back against that.
It's funny. Today I was quite bored because it's just a lazy weekend. I've been mostly been binge watching Squid Game, like the
Oh yeah,
first, and like it kind of reminds me of that a little bit because like it's also it also features that same kind of principle of like, well, if you're old and looking for ways to be productive, you're always going to miss out. Always going to lose out to like someone who's like really able-bodied, and so that's sort of like inequality is still going to reign in like a Leninist society.
right. Yeah,
So yeah, that's
yeah,
that's
because of the hierarchical way that they've set the system up, right?
yeah.
It can't be egalitarian in a true sense.
No, absolutely not. And I also just honestly, I don't think power can lead to like less power.
Right.
Like if
Yeah.
power isn't abolished, it will just grow into like the new status quo. Like it's just gonna start all over again. And
Yeah.
we've seen it so many times before, and uh, we just
Yeah.
refuse to learn that lesson. Just one more time, and then we're gonna have our Leninist utopia, and it's gonna be fine. Or like they hinge their bets on China. The famous meme. What was it like last year that Jinping was like, "Oh, we're gonna move into socialism by 2050 or something." What was that meme again?
I,
So it's it's,
like
it's
how can you have these? How can you create egalitarianism through hierarchy?
yeah. That's the real double think. But like, and it's funny that like a lot of these people um, would call us like utopianists. They would call us
Yeah.
utopian thinkers. But like, really, like, okay, if you're gonna say like, oh well, Xi Jinping is like really adamant about like establishing socialism in 2050, guys. Just 25 more years, it's gonna be there. It's like
Yeah.
it's almost as bad as like being a crypto bro at that point.
Right.
Like being like a crypto bro holder, like
Yeah. That's right.
it's going over the moon, guys.
Crypto
Just
is fully going to undermine
yes,
monetary policy.
it's going over the moon.
Yeah.
Just a few more days.
Yeah. That's right.
Like that sounds way more utopian than whatever the fuck anarchists believe.
Yeah. That's right.
Term, I would say. uh,
I think, like, because maybe this is my own bias, but it seems like people with those kinds of views, they're missing the actual historical context of what happened. Like
yeah,
they refuse to look at the systems that they believed in or believe in and say, oh, well, it ended up in this result for this reason, like because of the hierarchy, because of the power structures, because they maintained that kind of system of an underclass and an upper class.
yeah. I that's something that honestly that still puzzles me. Like I get, for example, why someone would be attracted to like the concept of like a great leader. Like even someone like me, like when I when I first read like Peter Kropotkin,
Mhm.
that for me was like a moment of like, wow, that's so fucking cool,
Yeah.
That's someone. He was like so charismatic, and he could put it. He could phrase things in this philosophy in such a way that would be like understandable, that like immediately clicks with people, and that
Right.
was so cool. Um, yeah, so from that standpoint, I kind of get it why you would be attracted to like someone, even though I try to refrain from doing so, obviously, because like even if you talk about like Kropotkin, for example, like famously Kropotkin said some really really dumb shit towards the end of his life
Right.
uh, about like the war. Yeah, that made him fall out with like the international anarchist community.
Yeah.
Um, so keeping heroes is just a really bad idea overall. But like I see why they would do it. But when it comes to like the systems working, I'm always like curious when Leninists say when they have faith in it working. I'm like really, like in which historical context has this ever like
Right.
out,
Yeah.
and and you could say the same thing for us, like anarchist Catalonia, the
Sure.
Spanish anarchists. Like, it's okay that they made a few mistakes, but like that's also a difference, I feel, because like when I converse with like fellow anarchists, um, we are always like quick to highlight that these were very really flawed, and that we would do these things differently.
Right.
Uh, so that this was just like a one stepping stone,
Yeah.
learning moment for us,
For sure.
But when you talk to like a Leninist, it's like, no, Lenin was right. We just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, like it's we again, maybe I'm just biased here, but we tend to try to build on the mistakes and learn from the mistakes of the past,
Yeah,
but rather than just copying what they did.
yeah,
like
exactly.
like which of the Bolsheviks do we copy now? Do we copy Lenin or Trotsky, or do we copy
Oh, God.
or do we copy Stalin? Like, who do we copy if that's the path we're taking?
Yeah.
Which Lenin do we copy? Do we copy early Lenin when he actually sounded a little bit more like an anarchist, or do we copy, in power Lenin?
Yeah. Yeah. The scary Lenin.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I guess like I say, like I'm not. I am probably a person who gives more apologetics for the USSR than other anarchists would.
I get that. I feel that way too, and that always fucking sucks when you have to do that. When like some fucking right wing asshole is just like spouting off obvious lies, and it's like, how are you gonna make me defend this now?
Yeah, that's right.
You were just a tanky in disguise. Like, no, I'm not. You're just,
Yeah, but
uh,
yeah, but there's no doubt that I think that there's huge missteps within the USSR and other socialist projects. Like,
yeah.
maybe they had good intentions, maybe they tried really hard, but they just didn't stay true to it, in my opinion. So
And I feel like, especially in like the modern communes, a lot of it also came out of the time when like anarchism was basically dead.
right,
Like
yeah,
for like because people forget like the modern anarchism isn't really that old at all. Like if when we mentioned speciesismo, for example, and like the current day platformist movement, but that's all so recently compared
yeah,
to, like um and so like the early modern anarchists are like people in like mostly in the 70s, maybe late 60s,
yeah,
and they were all people who like really heavily contributed to that like misconception of like an anarchist being like uh a hippie with no plan,
Right.
to put it really bluntly, and like, and that's really unfortunate because like some of those people are like they have like really good intentions. Are you familiar with um, Christiania?
Uh,
Christiania.
mm,
So that's like so that's an anarchist project in Denmark. It's in Copenhagen in Denmark. So it's like a
okay.
and that was basically um, formed by a group of like protesting. Well, yeah, just I think how would you call them? I think we called them something at the time with probos. Like they're like people who like protesting hippies. That's I mean that's the best that's the best description you're gonna get from.
Okay.
But like and a lot of them protested for the right reasons, for like um for like squatting, for like
Oh
house
yeah.
that sort of thing. So that's very understandable. But but you're also squatting your way into a commune that's completely landlocked, into a harbor that's gonna get, um, you know, that's gonna get police raids like basically every week.
Mm,
That there's just so like that there's just not much planning there going on. Like
yeah.
for all the people saying like, oh, Rojava is not a true anarchist. For all the people who say that, Rojava is still like the best strategic like how do I phrase that? They went into it with like the most sound of mind, I guess.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think of like the Zapatistas too. Like they're not
Yeah.
anarchists, right? But
Mm.
but they're a project that's related to anarchism in a way,
Yeah.
and it required like I mean it wasn't all planned, but
Yeah.
but a lot of it was, and a lot of this it takes organizing, it takes thought, it takes like actual strategy.
Yeah. And it's not like, you know, just squatting a bunch of houses and just seeing where it goes. Like I feel like that's kind of speaks for itself, but like there are still people who like well-meaning like radical liberals who kind of think like that, like radlips
Yeah,
who kind of think like, oh, well, we're gonna protest here, and we're gonna block off this section of the city, of like fucking Seattle or whatever, and it's like, okay, and now what then? What are you gonna do? And like you're completely landlocked. It's like it's just a bunch of guys in like with like in like two streets. Like the police is just gonna like waltz all over you, and
yeah.
that
It does take. Yeah, it's kind of weird because you need that spontaneity, but also you need that kind of planning and structure in a
Mhm.
way to so that it's more effective. And like that was one of the big things about the Occupy movement is that like everybody criticized it for not having a plan or for not having real goals. And you go like, okay, but it was still valuable in a sense, and but also, yeah, maybe it could have been better.
yeah, yeah, and that's one of those learning moments, I suppose.
Yeah,
We all just look to improve upon the next thing.
yeah.
That's actually one thing that I really like about Especificismo again. That if you read into it, it actually encourages people within the platform to create their own theory as well.
Mm,
And when I read that, it like immediately clicked for me because I was like, that's such a clever way to like get people involved, because the one thing that people don't want to do is sit around and just um, just treat your political organization like a book club, like
yeah, yeah,
where it's like, oh, no, we're gonna read about these 19th century old white men, who had. It's like, that's not to take away from those.
Right. Because book clubs are good. But
I'll go so far as to say that even I think Marx had some pretty good things to say, but like,
sure.
um, uh, especially like when you consider that like every social political situation is different, like in every place, like in South America is going to be different from like I don't know, Africa or whatever,
Yep.
or that's going to be different from Southeast Asia or whatever. So I think it's like really smart to get people involved like that, and especially since it's going to be, horizontally organized. It seems it seems only fitting that like people actually feel like they're getting a say in it,
For sure.
because they are getting a say in
Yeah,
it.
that's right. Yeah, you want people to have a legitimate say, not just
Yeah, exactly. So you can like really talk about these things, instead of like being like, oh no, in this regard we're gonna do so and so. It's like, okay, well then we're just doing the same thing again, just with like a different ideology, like a different ideology attached to it. But we're still doing the same thing. We're still following um, the words of like someone else in that sense. And there's still, of course, a lot of good strategy to specificismo, that's taken from the from platformism in general. But I feel like these adjustments make it a lot more, um, lot, yeah, democratic, for lack of a better word. But I say that fully realizing that the word democracy doesn't really have
Yeah.
meaning anymore these days. It's like the liberalization of like democracy. What does it even mean nowadays? Like picking the color of your chains. That's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
democracy. No, I don't think so. That's
Yeah.
democracy. That's just um, yeah. That's just the slavery, but like um, slavery, but like with some flowers drawn onto it, whatever.
Yeah. I think it was Andrewism made the case in one of his.
I love him. He's an
Yeah.
pacifist, by the way.
Right. Yeah. I think he made the case in one of his semi recent videos, like maybe 6 months ago, about how we should abandon the word democracy in favor of,
I've heard that before. Yeah, I've heard that before. I don't blame it. I don't blame him. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's like what, yeah, like you say, like what does it even mean now? Like to people, it means representative democracy.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to like when you talk to someone about freedom, you know, like what does freedom mean? Like a lot of anarchists, like myself, will just say liberty, because
Yeah.
that just has like like a different connotation to it, like and you see this funny enough, you see this within like open source community as well. I don't know how familiar you are with like
Not really.
well, like like in Linux communities, the term open source actually means a lot, like it
Oh,
means
okay.
open software, like
Right.
software that you can compile for yourself and use for yourself however you wish.
Ah,
That's very different from like something like Windows and like
for
or like
sure.
Adobe, and all those software packages that like try to ring you for every penny. And and all the software I have on my admittedly Windows machine that I pirated, but is all free and open source. But that's one of those examples of like um, um, where people tend to, at least in my experiences, a lot of the proponents of like of open source and the developers, they'll always say like, I'm trying to think what they exactly say, but it's usually like freedom as in freedom or something, or freedom as in free beer or something. I forgot how. But like, but they always have to. I just think it's funny that they always have to like kind of clarify, because like otherwise, people, even with the word freedom, people often often mistake that for like, you know, for fake freedom. I don't
Yeah.
know what to call it.
I always go back to we have the freedom to consume and choose from 12 different kinds of ketchup.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the same freedom as like what I said earlier about like picking the color of your chains. Like,
Yeah.
freedom? No, it's that's just a.
That's not what I mean when I mean freedom. Yeah.
And it's like it's kind of like when you watch when I watch a show like Squid Game. I always and that's not my interpretation. I should say the Squid Game. The creator has said that it's an anti-capitalist
Mm-hmm.
show. It's meant to be like a critique of capitalism. And when you when the prisoners, they're all like huddled together in like the bunker, and then at night the light goes out, and it's like everyone just starts basically trying to kill one another, because that's what would be preferable for the game, to have like the less candidates, and it would mean that the prize pool is higher
Mm-hmm.
in the show. And like a neoliberal capitalist could frame that as like freedom. It's like, well, you have the freedom to just do. You could just leave each other alive. That's fine.
Yeah.
Like you choose to violently cave someone's head in, and it's like, no, you put a gun to their head.
Right, right. Yeah, it's like the context doesn't make any difference or like the material conditions are irrelevant to the choices that you made
Yeah,
somehow.
it's like the Saw thing,
Yeah.
Familiar with Saw, like the movie. It's that. And yeah. Damn, at some point maybe Saw could have been a cool critique of capitalism.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually have neble watched the Saw movies. That's
No?
it's one of those. I've never been a fan of the whole gore horror thing.
I'm a bit of a horror fan. By a bit of a horror fan, I mean like actually quite a lot of horror fan.
Is that right?
Like,
I like your classic horror. Like I like vampires and werewolves and ghosts, but I don't like gore. Like I don't like.
Yeah. It kind of depends. Like I have watched like most of like what people would describe as like really disturbing movies. The fictional stuff, obviously. It's not like you go to the dark web, but I mean,
right.
This fictional horror movies. I feel like I've worked my way down most of those like lists, and like one really cool one is like Salo.
Okay.
That. Have you never heard of that movie?
It doesn't ring any bells. No.
Oh, good. I think you would prefer to keep it that way.
Okay.
But because it is a pretty fucked up movie. But the director of that movie was actually he was like I wanted to say classical Marxist, but like an orthodox Marxist, I guess you would call that.
Okay.
He was more of a Marxist, and less Lenin, like a traditional Marxist guy, and he was also openly gay, and this was basically like his critique of fascism, and he was really open about that, and he actually was it 2 or 3 weeks before the movie released, he got violently assassinated by like.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, what people suspect was a far right like militia.
Wow.
And this was like in the 70s. Yeah, it's fucked up. But the movie is like I said, it is really fucked up. It is it is on those lists for a reason. It is messed up. But it is like really compelling, and like and really dark, you know, like it's
Mm-hmm.
movies where like it stuff does not end well, you know. There's no hero at the end who like comes and saves the day and like kicks the door in and like starts machine gunning the baddies. And I
Right.
feel that's one of those things that's so. When I saw the ending, that really clicked for me because it really felt to me like the guy whose name I can't remember because I suck at names and even more so Italian names. Um, but I feel like that's the statement he was making most of all is that like there is no good ending to fascism, you know?
Right.
There is no good ending to this. Like, it, I feel like if this was made by like a liberal, you know, like a neoliberal, like some Captain America dude would probably kick the door in at the end and like, like just gun everyone down, and it's like, oh, I'll save you, and he like carries them on his back like all heroically. That
Yeah, that's right.
and then the explosion goes off right behind him, you know, like like
Yeah.
like that. But like, no, he was like really adamant about that message. I feel, and I I really respect the movie for that. I don't think I would watch it again, but um, yeah, I do think that was like really compelling.
That is something that I think, I mean, I've heard it. And thinking back on some of the horror that I've watched, I guess a lot of it seems to have kind of an anti-capitalist, anti-establishment kind of messaging in it,
Mhm.
even if it gets watered down because it's created by corporations, right?
Yeah, for real. Yeah, yeah. I feel kind of walking down the list in my head to see like if I can find some movies. Like, there was there's one fucked up movie that's called Martyrs.
Okay.
Um, that's also a good contender for like a really fucked movie. Like that makes Saul look like fucking Sesame Street.
Oh, geez.
But that also kind of features like a sort of like um, well, for lack of a better term, it's the exploitation is like mostly facilitated by a group of like capitalist elites almost, you know, kind of in a similar vein as like Squid Game in that sense.
Right, right.
Yeah, you can definitely extract some like strong anti-capitalist sentiments from that, I feel.
Yeah. I guess I shouldn't say I'm anti-gore entirely because like I've watched a lot of it. I used to consider myself a fan of horror, and then it seemed like it crossed a line where now it was doing things that I couldn't handle anymore.
I can kind of see that, especially like, I mean, we do live in a time where like, you know, like even more so when Twitter was like still the primary platform, but it's thankfully starting to wane now. But like
Yeah.
Twitter used to be really prominent, and I remember when I joined Twitter in like 2018. I remember if you just if you if you click like the wrong hashtag or whatever, you know, you could just be faced with like actual war crimes, you know, like actual
Yeah.
images of like war crimes and stuff like that.
Especially the past year and a half or whatever since the uh,
Palestine,
genocide in Gaza, right?
yeah, yeah, especially, and even more so when you consider that like there's also been like people who would like mix those images in with like a video of something like innocuous.
Right.
You know, I've seen that happen on Twitter like before, and people would thankfully, you know, always try to warn people about certain hashtags that would feature those things. But that just goes to show like how easy it is for like someone to get traumatized on the internet. Isn't that fucked up? Like,
Yeah.
can you imagine? Like, I, when I was like a little kid, like internet wasn't really that prominent. I'm like an older millennial, but like I can imagine like some fucking I don't know 9-year old scrolling Twitter thinking they're gonna see some cute shit, and then suddenly that shit is not like that really sticks with you, you know, the traumatizing stuff.
It probably makes me sound like a really old guy right now, but my kids watch a lot of YouTube. And a lot of the videos, like, they're pretty innocuous to start off. Like, they've got the characters from, like, Bluey or whatever, some other kids show. And then they'll turn into, like, some sexual innuendo garbage, or they'll be like, you know, oh, well, by the way, we're killing each other. Like, they go like, oh, my God, like, my 9 and 6-year-old are watching this. Like,
yeah. As much as I am an anarchist. Like, if I had kids, I think I would also like be like really strongly curating as much as possible, at least, because it's just
a lot of times their little brains aren't ready for that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like fucking traumatizing someone with like violence and gore is bad. Who could have thought? But yeah, that is fucked up. Yeah. Thankfully, that also used to be like a massive thing on Reddit, but I think Reddit has like they had the Great Purge like a few years ago.
Yeah.
So, like that's a little bit like it's still kind of a shithole. The website.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit more strict now. It's a bit more of a stricter shithole.
There is a certain type of person that spends a lot of time on Reddit, right? Like there was I think a while ago, like I think it was mainly they discussed atheist boards on Reddit or subreddits, and but they found that like it was overwhelmingly like just toxic guys. Just being like anti-social justice, anti-feminist, you know, just being trash.
and it's funny because like I still see like sometimes either on Blue Sky you talk to like someone who is like a lefty, or God forbid even an anarchist, you know, they'll share like a political compass meme or something, you know, and it's like I always like always kind of I always hold back because I don't want to be like, well, you shouldn't do this, you know. I don't want to be that person, but like at the same time they are sharing, like promoting the political compass stuff. They're promoting right-wing libertarian propaganda, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's right.
The entire compass was made to like validate right-wing libertarianism as a political ideology.
Yeah, that bottom right-hand quadrant actually doesn't exist.
Yeah, it really doesn't exist. But like, it was like it was invented to promote that ideology.
Yeah, I could see that.
And it's funny, and you see people posting on that sub, and they're making like cute little anarchist versions about it, and it's like, dude. Could you do something better with your time? I mean, I'm not one to talk, but like, I don't know.
No, that's fair. We are at about 55 minutes here, though. Is there anything that you want to mention that we haven't discussed yet?
55 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Gee, I don't know. We haven't talked about music yet. You could talk about that if you like, but...
Sure.
Because,
I was just going to say, like, I am a bit of a metalhead, but it's like, I'm also an old man, so a lot of stuff has moved past me.
Yeah, it's, I definitely had my fights with, like, the chuddy types, and I'm also someone, I've also done gigs, like, in my part of town.
Okay.
my neighborhoods. And it always sucks when you like encounter someone like a band who like in person was like really cool, and then you're like, oh, well, what are they up to now? And they're like sharing fucking Donald Trump memes or whatever, you know, like
geez, eh?
or anti-trans stuff. I've seen that too. Like a death metal band that shares like anti-trans like comments, and then I'm always like. I always feel a need to like to really shout at them and to just be like, you know, metal used to be about the outsider, you know. That's what we've always been told, you know. When I
Yeah.
started listening to metal, and you know, I God knows I'm not like an old that old. Like I didn't grow up with Maiden or whatever, you know. I'm not that old, but that's something that I was always taught, you know. At least that metal was always, you know, was always for the underdogs, you know. It was for
Yeah.
underdogs by underdogs, and what the fuck are you doing
Would
by
Black Sabbath approve of you right now?
always ask yourself, what would Ozzy think of this?
That's right.
Or like, or no, or better yet, what about Motorhead?
I don't know that one.
Do you know Motorhead?
Oh, Motorhead. Sorry, I must. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah.
But because he was actually really anti like that sort of like child behavior, like racism and shit like that.
Yeah.
He was pretty vocally opposed to that stuff.
Yeah.
It always pains me that, but and like, you know, there's always a limit to how much you can say, because at the end of the day, I feel like you have to kind of educate yourself more than anyone else can, because that's how I reached like
Yeah.
anarchism, and specifically anarchist communism, is because I am autistic and I am LGBT, and thanks to my autism, I've faced a lot more like the shitty end of the stick when I grew up and in schools, and that's another thing I can talk about for like at least like 2 hours. I feel about like schools and like the education system.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's a big one, and but that really that did kind of shape my perception, and it led me to like really fall in love with like the stuff that Peter Kropotkin wrote, for example,
Right.
and and I feel like that is the sort of thing that um, puts people nearest to like anarchism as like a philosophy, because like people always wonder, like, you know, like, well, you know, all these lefties, they're always LGBT, and they're all super gay, and they're all, you know, oh, oh, look at this person, they have like 5 million disabilities, but like that's not the own that they think it is, obviously, because
Yeah. Yeah.
shared experience made it so that we are more likely to identify as anarchists,
Right.
because we've seen the shitty end of like unchecked authoritarianism, you know, like the sort of thing that like people don't even like, a lot of normies don't even like want to question, you know.
Yeah.
Why is there an adult man in front of a classroom who has like basically unchecked authority over like an entire class of children? Why is that? Why are we so okay with that? You know,
Yeah.
like most people, uh, as soon as I say this, they roll their eyes and they're like, "Oh no, you're probably one of those punks who like just wants to smash the system," and like, well, you know, they think you're just like a rebellious teenager or whatever.
Well, I absolutely want to smash the system, but I'm not just that. Like, there's more I want to do.
But like, that's so frustrating. And even though that's such an interesting conversation, you know, like, but like, especially to people who have like children, you know, like, are you really okay with like someone having like unchecked authority with your children in like a classroom? Like that's something worth thinking about, I feel.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I've had conflicts because I have 2 adult children too. And I had conflicts with some of their teachers in the past because they would try to show like religious movies in class, and like, or they'd be promoting some ideas that I was like, okay, but that's like stuff that you shouldn't get to teach my kid.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I want my kids to learn sex education, but I don't want them to be taught that Christianity is the only fucking viable religion, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Then you're dealing with like actual propaganda, not like the fact that like trans people exist, you know, but
Right.
like propaganda of like, oh, Jesus is our our Lord and Savior, blah blah.
Yeah, like please teach my children that trans people exist,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
don't teach them that Jesus is our Lord and Savior.
Yeah, as it should be.
But yeah, no, I have, yeah, obviously very serious issues with the education system, but also like we're put in a position where we have no choice, right? Where because everybody has to be working, we
Yeah.
can't be at home taking care of our children. So
Yeah.
so we're almost forced to put our kids into a position where they're in a forced conformity, forced like a position where they have to be taught to be good workers. And
Hmm.
it's like,
Like
yeah.
it really is like what would be a good like English expression for that? Like up shit creek without a paddle. Like,
Yeah, that's right.
and,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but it really reminds me uh, this is the last time I'll bring up Squid Game, but like it reminds me of like life in South Korea because like I don't know how familiar you are with like late stage capitalism in like South Korea nowadays.
Only tangentially, like just a little
It's
bit.
like well basically well the fertility rate is like 0.67% or something.
Okay.
It's really bad because like because of sexism and among other things. And capitalism is so bad. Um, you basically have to force like if you don't like homeschool your kids like private lessons, you know, like paid private lessons for like I don't know for like fucking 15 hours a day or something, you know, you're not gonna get into one of like three elite universities, you know, that are
Right.
give you a job at like Samsung, you know, the company that basically owns South Korea.
Right.
It's fucked up. It's like some
No kidding.
cyberpunk shit, you know. It's fucked up. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess the only thing left for the end of this is where can people find you and what would you like them to find?
Um, you can find me on just Blue Sky Works. Um, if you just search for the Wolf Spirit, I think it should be the URL thingy should be just the Wolf Spirit, one word, and then you can find me.
Cool.
Um, I'll usually put like my music stuff in my pinned post. Currently, it's like a little teaser for like an upcoming album for Drang, my music project, my black metal solo project.
Cool.
Uh, and um, I'm also on Mastodon, but I'm not as active as I should be. Uh, but you should find me on. You can still find me there if you wish. Also, the Wolf Spirit at the Wolf Spirit, one word.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. It was a very fun conversation.
Yeah, I could be waffling here for like another 3 hours, but you
All
would,
right on.
you know,
I'll have to have you come back on sometime.
I'd love to. Yeah, I love talking to you and any other leftists I can find.
For sure. Right on. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
See you later.
All right, folks, that's all for now. Thanks for watching or listening. Remember to share this show with your friends or on the social media site that you use the most. Thank you to everyone who supports this show on Patreon. I really appreciate it and it helps me keep the power on. Thanks to my top patrons, Damian Marie at Hope, Some Random Geek, Justin Clark, Dan F. Smith, and Lisa Glass. And thank you to my new patrons. You can stay tuned for the list of patrons at the end to see your name listed. If you aren't a patron and want to contribute, you can do that at patreon.com/skepticalleftist, or you can send a one-time donation to buymeacoffee.com/skepticallefty. I also have a Substack where you can subscribe for free or you can donate per month. And lastly, you can get a paid subscription on Spotify that will give you the same access to bonus content and extra long episodes. If you can't contribute financially, then a like on YouTube or a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or one of the podcast review sites like Podchaser would be great. If you want to find more from me, then make sure to check out the show notes for links to all my stuff, or check out my link tree. It's linktr.ee/skepticalleftist. That's where you can find all of my social media spaces and communities. You can also email me at mindofaskepticalleftist@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening or watching. Make sure to leave a comment on the video, join your local org, print off some posters or pamphlets, and spread the propaganda.